Back to Syria now, where Kurdish forces are accusing Turkey of violating the terms of a U.S.-brokered ceasefire. At the same time, Russian leaders reportedly huddled in Syria to discuss de-escalating tensions in the region. Our Holly Williams is near the Syrian border in Turkey.
The United Nations said the border between eastern Syria and Turkey was mostly calm yesterday, but there are reports of violations of the ceasefire by both sides. 14 civilians were killed by Turkish-led airstrikes and mortar fire, according to a Syrian monitoring group. 200,000 civilians have reportedly fled the area in recent days, and Turkish-backed militants have been accused of atrocities against Syrian civilians. The US effectively opened the door to this Turkish incursion into Syria last week, when President Trump announced that US troops would be pulling back from the border region. US forces, numbering around 1,000, are now in the process of withdrawing entirely from eastern Syria. That decision is a betrayal of the Syrian Kurds, according to many, both in Syria and in the US, including Republican members of Congress. A Kurdish-dominated militia group has been America's closest partner on the ground in Syria in the fight against ISIS, and now they are the targets of Turkey's assault. Turkey views the Kurdish group that partnered with the US as a terrorist organization. President Trump called the ceasefire agreement a, quote, great day for civilization. But the US withdrawal could ultimately benefit the Syrian regime and its allies, Russia and Iran. If the ceasefire breaks down, there are also fears for accused ISIS fighters being held by the Kurds. We were given exclusive access to one of their prisons last month. They say they're holding around 12,000 former ISIS fighters, including 4,500 foreigners. The nightmare scenario is that with renewed fighting, the Kurdish group will no longer have the resources to properly secure the prisons, and there could be a mass escape of ISIS fighters.
Now I want to bring in Julia Manchester. She's a reporter from The Hill, and she joins us from Washington. Julia, let's start with Syria. President Trump has received a lot of backlash for withdrawing troops, even from his own party. We were just talking to our Weijia Zhang about that. We have to remember he's running a re-election campaign here. How are his decisions on foreign policy going to start impacting that?
Well, Jamie, it's hard to tell because voters typically don't vote on, base their vote on foreign policy issues like the pullout going on in Syria right now. However, if you see a number of lawmakers start to draw back their support from President Trump on this issue, I think that's going to get a lot of voters' attention, especially some undecided or more moderate voters who really aren't sure where to go at this point. It also gives very much an opening to Democrats to attack the president and essentially say that even members of his own party are against him on this. So I think it could impact their votes quite a bit. However, it's kind of hard to say how it will at this point because we know that so much can happen between now and November of 2020.
Oh, my goodness. So much can happen, right? As we've seen before. Well, talking about campaign 2020, Hillary Clinton getting a lot of headlines for suggesting the Russians are grooming a candidate for a third-party run. Well, she's not naming names, it seems like. She did seem to be talking about 2020 presidential hopeful Tulsi Gabbard, and Gabbard responded to Clinton's comments Friday on CBSN. Let's go ahead and listen to what she said when asked how concerned she was about Russian meddling in 2020.
This is not about Russia. Let's stay focused on the issue at hand here, that Hillary Clinton is labeling me as a foreign agent and a traitor, smearing and undermining my campaign, both directly herself and indirectly through her proxies, who've been doing this really since I announced my candidacy for president. The reason why she's doing this is because she knows that she can't control me. She knows that she's not going to be able to manipulate me if I'm elected president to be able to continue these warmongering policies that she has championed throughout her career. This is about bringing our party back, bringing our country back into the hands of the people and ensuring our government is fighting for the people, fighting for our planet, and fighting for peace.
Gabbard sounds pretty fired up there. What do you make of the back and forth between her and Clinton?
Right. So I think it took a lot of us by surprise when Clinton originally attacked Gabbard, and her campaign later confirmed that she was, in fact, talking about Tulsi Gabbard. But, it kind of begs the question as to why Hillary Clinton is doing this now. She's not running again in 2020.
Or is she?
Or is she? That's the question, right? Right? Like, we need so many more candidates on the stage now. But, you know, as of now, she's not running yet. She's not really, a lot of campaigns haven't really gone to her for alignment on, you know, on the campaign trail and such. We don't know how much they will, given she lost last election. So I don't know if this is a way to kind of just get out into the headlines, or maybe even, you know, draw attention to the issue of disinformation. Remember, there are theories and there is some, you know, there is some evidence that points to a lot of bots, or maybe some, you know, Russian-backed organizations such as RT kind of promoting Tulsi Gabbard more, but it's very unclear. However, it does seem like this is kind of a clash of the two sides of the Democratic Party. Remember, Hillary Clinton is very establishment Democratic Party. Tulsi Gabbard is extremely anti-establishment. In fact, a lot of her supporters are from a very fringe part of the Democratic Party that have major issues with the Democratic National Committee and establishment figures like Hillary Clinton. And you've actually seen some conservatives rally around Tulsi Gabbard. So we'll really have to see where this goes from here. But it's just a very random exchange between these two, in part because Hillary Clinton, as of now, isn't running, and Tulsi Gabbard has struggled to get 2 or 1% in the polls.
Well, I have to ask, you know, they always say any PR is good PR. Could this actually be good for Gabbard's campaign?
Yeah, it could absolutely give her some name recognition, get her name in the headlines, and I think it will definitely boost her popularity among the voters she already is popular with, such as those anti-establishment Democratic voters. However, I don't think it's going to play a role in, you know, undecided Democratic primary voters or even undecided general election voters. I think they view this right now as kind of a bitter back and forth between the two. I think we'll really have to see, you know, if Tulsi Gabbard gains more momentum, maybe. But right now she's polling so low that I don't really see how this could give her more traction.
Yeah, interesting. Well, you have an article in The Hill titled "Biden Camp Faces New Challenges." Can you explain to us what are these challenges for one of the Democratic frontrunners?
Right. So I think the first major challenge is the fact that he's no longer 100% the front runner. We've seen Elizabeth Warren climb very steadily in the polls and has very much stolen quite a bit of Biden's thunder. On stage, on the debate stage, he's no longer just the one front runner. We have Elizabeth Warren there as well. So last Tuesday in Ohio, we saw that a lot of that attention wasn't going towards Biden, the attacks from the other candidates, whereas in the previous debates, the other candidates were looking to swipe at Biden because they knew he was the front runner. They're swiping at Warren now, so I think that's a major challenge in her growing popularity. Another challenge is that he's simply not raising as much money as the other Democratic candidates, namely Warren and Sanders. Warren and Sanders have major grassroots funding apparatuses. Biden is fundraising in a very traditional way with maybe bigger donors. So I think it shows maybe how his campaign really needs to adapt to current fundraising models and kind of the current political climate. And I think there have been lots of questions also, and I think this goes for Bernie Sanders as well, questions about Biden's age and such and his fitness to run for office. He is in his late 70s. Same thing goes for Bernie Sanders. And we know that Bernie Sanders has a rally later today, his first major campaign rally since suffering the heart attack earlier this month. So he'll try to reassure voters. But, you know, I think there's some there's a large portion of the Democratic primary electorate that's kind of thinking, okay, maybe it's time for new leadership, for new blood in this. So I think there are questions about that.
Along those lines, Bernie Sanders racking up quite a few endorsements over this last week, too.
Absolutely. And I don't think those endorsements are really a surprise. We've seen that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the 3 other progressive congresswomen, together known as the Squad, they have very much championed Bernie Sanders' proposals that he originally championed in 2016, and they kind of brought them back on the 2018 campaign trail. But, you know, his campaign is really banking on this, is giving him the momentum he's lost in recent weeks and maybe giving him more star power. We know that Ocasio-Cortez and those 3 other progressive congresswomen, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar, are extremely popular with the progressive base. So it really helps his campaign maybe get some stardom, if you will. But we'll really have to see, because we've still seen that Elizabeth Warren has been able to withstand a lot of that and continue to, you know, build her campaign and build her momentum based on that powerful, on-the-ground, grassroots campaign style she has. And also So, I don't know how endorsements really matter. If they do matter really in the long run, I think voters tend to just stick to the issues and don't pay as much attention to who's rallying behind these candidates.
That's a good point, too. Julia Manchester, thank you so much.
Thank you.